Today, HS2 announced the beginning of construction of Phase 1, which we hope would never go ahead. They've been in the enabling works phase so far. That's what they call it, the enabling works. That's what they call chopping down the trees and creating these disastrous haul roads. They call it enabling works. And all that's enabling is ecocide and profit for elites. Absolute madness. Sorry everyone, my tech is running out of battery. Alright, we're good. We can go speak to some more people in the train. How are you ladies doing? Would you like to say anything on Facebook, HS2 Rebellion?
I'm very shy about it.
That's okay. Well, thank you for being here. Victoria, I spoke to you earlier, but I had to delete the stream because it was sideways. So, do you want to say something again quickly?
Well, it's absolutely brilliant. Loads of people are joining in, and the general public are giving us thumbs up. They're hooting on their horns. They're giving us all the encouragement we need because they know the truth. This project has to stop.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
Victoria's a long-time campaigner for Stop HS2, one of the most committed, and you'll often find her at the base of a tree stopping work. You're often found at the base of a tree, in the way.
HS2, nobody wants you! It's a scam, it's clear to see! Nothing green about it! HS2, we don't want you!
Wow, Ali, that's really disappointing to hear. I hadn't seen the BBC News broadcast, but that's so disappointing to hear that they're only talking about the positives of HS2, even though we're so obviously protesting against it, and the case is so clear against HS2. What is going on with our media? What is going on? Where are they? Why are they not covering what's going on and sharing the truth? Shame on the BBC.
Shame on the BBC. This is happening. It should be reported. They're hiding the truth.
Thank you. So if people could please write to the BBC, put in a complaint, go on the complaints BBC page and ask them why the hell they're not covering the HS2 protests. We've literally scaled the trees in Parliament Square. We locked on to a tree stump outside the department for farming and rural agriculture. And what more can we do? We're here with Boris the Bank Engine. We're just screaming, come on, pay attention, it's a very simple thing. HS2 is fucked. But they can't. Clearly, they're in the pockets. Shame on the BBC.
Hello, Habitat. You have the same first letter as HS2.
Nothing wrong with Habitat, mate.
Thank you, Caroline. is absolutely undemocratic. The BBC should be a check on the worst excess of power. And if you go outside the BBC headquarters in London here, there's actually a statue of George Orwell. And I can't remember the exact quote, but I think if you go... Basically, it explains that the media is there to protect us. And
So for anyone that's just joined in, we're in Manchester, where northern rebels and northern activists from around the country and world are fighting against HS2. We're telling people we do not want this in the north either. We stand in solidarity with everyone on the camps at the moment. Jones Hill, Denham, Harville Road, Wendover, Steeple Claydon, Covington. I apologise if I've missed any off the list, but seriously, we stand in solidarity here as activists today.
Actually does is it criminalises the idea of a migrant. If you're too poor, too brown, too black, you become a criminal. It destroys the right to be and the right to belong for border communities who can no longer visit their families or go to their fields on this line that a foreign power marked through your lands. People who became stateless because foreign powers drew lines around where they exist. Indigenous communities can no longer visit their homelands because it's on the wrong side of the border. People fleeing violence can no longer seek safety anymore. We are criminalising the world over unless you fit into the nice, white, elite capitalist label, essentially. And all this is to stem the flow of migration to Europe, to America, to the global minority, while we freely flow in the opposite direction. And what we don't talk about when we look at these borderlines of defence, these borderlines of security, we forget about the insecurity that we have caused around the world through mass extraction of resources, through the EU's overfishing in West Africa. So people along the West African coast, their fish stocks are depleted, they plunge into poverty, their livelihoods are lost. From the bits of land that are being sold off on Wall Street for the wealthy individuals, taking that away from the lands and sowing seeds and crops that are not compatible with the lands and not paying their workers enough, through the instability, through climate change, and the continuing violence and oppression placed on people who have not asked for it and not contributed to it. And this destabilisation, of course, continues with climate change, with lands that are increasingly uninhabitable, with insufferable heats. We're starting to get parts of the world where increasingly getting heat waves where it's technically not possible to live because the rate of humidity to heat, it means that the human body actually just shuts down, and there's increasing places and frequencies that this happens in. We're seeing sea level rise across the world, we're seeing crops die, and we're starting to see movement on every continent. And this is all in the time whilst we're building our walls higher. So the question is, when the ownerships of lands and people, when the disregard for Mother Nature, when people who have farmed and lived in their land sustainably can no longer move and their land is destroyed. In this kind of world, the question is, who is the threat? And we know that the migrant is not the threat. The barbed wire is the threat. The environmental breakdown is the threat. The inequality is the threat. The racism and the dehumanization is the threat. The fact that someone like me with my skin color can move when other people cannot, the people that choose these things, they are the threat. Border security is not a sanitised, bureaucratic matter of security like our British government likes to pretend it is. It props up a global imperialist system and a global class system, and this is a system that must be teared down for migrant and climate justice in a warming world. Thank you.
That was the first speech.
Thank you very much.
Side of the Home Office. From Tess.
Some really important words about how our borders don't just operate here in the UK or at our nation's borders, but also across the world. Thanks very much. I just wanted to do a quick shout out for the people who have done something pretty good today. They're standing outside the Home Office. They're having a bit of an outfit clash with the police. But these are people who have chained themselves to the railings in front of the Home Office in order to block the entrance. Thank you very much.
This is a great movement of movements. What a great applause.
now want to introduce a friend. Rosanna Wiseman is an organiser with SOAS Detainee Support. This is an abolitionist group which supports people in detention to resist their incarceration and their deportation. Here you go, Rosanna.
Thank you. Hello everyone. Thank you all for being here. It's so great to see XR standing up for climate justice and migrant justice today. So I want to tell you exactly how people in that building over there are treating people today. So yesterday morning, 11 people were cruelly stuffed on a plane at Stansted Airport and deported from London to Spain. They were then chucked out on the streets in Madrid. These 11 people were fleeing the war-torn country of Syria. Despite being legally allowed to apply for asylum in the UK, the Home Office acted in dubious and shady ways by not appropriately looking at their claim. The Home Office has now deported them to a country where they face destitution, hunger and homelessness. These 11 Syrians were in the UK to seek safety for themselves and for their children. Just like you, XR rebels, they believe in fighting for a better future for themselves, a better future for their children. So in the past few months, we have seen the media demonise migrants crossing the English Channel. They're just seeking safety here in the UK. But the ruling class and the media likes to portray this migrant crisis, blaming people for their own suffering. But this is not a migrant crisis. This is a crisis of war. This is a crisis of poverty. And this is a climate crisis. A lot of people currently seeking safety in the UK are being brutally denied it. They are from countries that are in a state of war and environmental destruction. And as the Brexit deadline approaches in December, the Home Office plans on rushing the deportations of many more people. This is because Brexit will change the legal requirements of deporting people to Europe. And the majority of these people marked for deportation are from countries being ravaged by war and are already feeling the effects of the climate crisis. These are countries such as Iraq, Syria, Sudan and Yemen. And what we must understand is that the UK is implicit in these wars and crimes against humanity. The UK sells arms to Saudi Arabia, who are dropping bombs on Yemen. The UK is complicit in fueling the drive for more oil in Middle Eastern countries such as Iraq. And the UK has historically released vast amounts of CO2 and benefits from corporations extracting natural resources and destroying entire regions worldwide. The way the UK is treating migrants today is wrong, it's unjust and it's cruel. Compared to the rest of the world, the UK takes on a pitiful amount of refugees. The UK must do more to take on the responsibility of the crises of war and the climate emergency that it helped create. And it is up to us, the people, to pressure the government to treat people and planet fairly. So when we call for climate justice and migrant justice, what does this mean? This means we want justice for those who are most affected by the climate crisis. Those who are the ones who have least contributed to this crisis. Those who are most likely to be forced out of their homes and who are being ravaged by the effects of this climate crisis. And this means we must demand freedom of movement for all. This means fighting for the freedom to move and the freedom to stay in a safe and suitable home. It means fighting to make sure that people's homes are no longer being destroyed by war or the climate crisis. And it means fighting to allow people to migrate to safe countries. In the coming months, people in that building right there plan to deport many more people. And if we believe in climate justice, if we believe in migrant justice, we must fight for the rights of those who have already made it to the UK. And right now, at the Immigration Detention Centre next to Gatwick, not so far from here, 30 people are on hunger strike, demanding for the deportation flights to be halted. So let's listen to their stories, let's amplify their voices, let's fight for them to stay, let's stop deportation flights, let's be a safe haven, because this is justice, this is reparations. From what we understand, the next deportation flight is on September the 17th. But if we fight together, we can stop it. Collective action has already stopped flights and stopped people from being on them. In the past few days, we have seen many of these deportations cancelled, thanks to the campaigning, the hunger strikes, the collective action of migrants and their supporters.
It's in Temple. I think you might need to get Temple. The law starts.
So in the past year, we have seen the amazing action of XR rebels fighting for the planet, blocking roads, getting arrested for protecting the planet. And imagine the collective power of us working together. The Home Office would not be able to stop us. So get in contact with these migrant solidarity organisations that you have heard from today and you will hear from today. XR has the collective power to unite with others to really create change. In the next few years, as the climate crisis worsens and ravages more of the earth, we are going to see people in power, people like in there, trying to divide us. They will tell us to blame other people and not the system which brought us to this place. But we must unite and tackle the root of the problem in order to stop the climate crisis together. So let's dismantle the system which puts profit before people and planet. Let's dismantle the oppressive borders which create barriers between us. Together we can create a world where people and planet are placed at the centre of all our thoughts and all of our actions. So let's fight for climate justice. Let's fight for migrant justice.
Thank you, Rosanna. So this protest we're having here today is scheduled to end at 1 o'clock. But at 1 o'clock another protest will happen right here. That protest is centred around one young man named Asim Brown. Asim Brown is an incredibly vulnerable adult, and I hear this story over and over again from my friends who work in the migrants' rights movement. This man was convicted based on the joint enterprise law. He was convicted because he was near when a crime happened, and the judge believed he didn't do enough to stop it. The defence witnesses say that he tried to stop the crime happening, but the judge still convicted him, and as a result, he is now being deported to Jamaica, a country he has not seen since he was 4 years old, an incredibly vulnerable adult who knows no one in that country. Well, those people don't care, but we do. So we're going to be staying on past 1 o'clock. I hope many of you can stay on and do that, to remain for that protest. We want to stop the deportation of Asim Brown. So part of the reason for today was to get a lot of environmentalists on the street listening to people who have been campaigning for migrants' rights for decades. And I'm about to introduce one of those people. Sarah Calloway is an anti-racist, women's rights, anti-war and immigrants' rights campaigner, and she has been doing that for 35 years. She's a member of Women of Colour Global Women's Strike, which campaigns for a care income for everyone, of every gender, caring for people, the urban and rural environment, and organising for justice. Sarah Calloway.
Sarah Calloway doing a speech.
And I'm so thrilled at the turnout and what the groups have done to pull this together, because this is absolutely urgent, what we're doing here today. And it's long overdue, but it's not too late. And, you know, it's great stuff. I wanted to start, I hope it's okay to just give an apology. My colleague Crystal Amos was going to be here, but she's unable to be. But I just wanted to highlight, there's a handbook that some of you know. The groups at our center, they got together about 10,000 copies, which they've been sending into detention centers to Calais. They're free to anybody who's fighting a case. So if there's anyone here who needs a copy, I have a few with me. And I wanted to also thank the organizers for calling for support for the young brother who's been done under the joint enterprise laws, which are racist and which disproportionately target people of color. I wanted to talk today about the care income and why it's important for the climate justice in every movement. I think probably everyone knows that if we're serious about stopping the climate crisis, we have to tackle racism in all its forms, including the devaluing of immigrants' lives and asylum seekers' lives and black lives generally. Nothing is beyond politics. Everything we do is or should be political. And saving the planet has got to be anti-capitalist. They intend to loot and pollute the planet, and we intend to stop them. Our lives depend on it. Immigrants play all kinds, and I'm an immigrant myself, play an important role for the movement because they bring hand facts, the reality of who's stealing what, who's polluting, who's killing, who's destroying the land and the water and the air. And we need that led by those movements. Some of the most important and life-saving campaigns are happening in Africa, but they're invisible here. And I'll just mention one. Some of you know about the Greenbelt movement, which was started by African women, rural women, who were working the plantations. They were growing coffee plants for no pay at all. And they decided to pull up the coffee plants and plant food for their families instead. They got the men to support them. They had to take on the police, the corporations, the security forces. And that's what it's like in many places. People are up against every aspect of the establishment. And I think that our movements have to follow in that. We have to take that as our starting point. And too often the work that mothers and grassroots women do is left out of the research, the stories told, but we're going to change that too. So people are fleeing, crossing the Med, risking their lives day in, day out, and it's an absolute horror story. People are moving because it's impossible to survive. It's impossible to produce food, to find water. The exploitation levels are through the roof. And those people are our people. They are us. And they're doing exactly what we do if we were in that situation. We've been trained, in the West to feel that we're different from the natural environment, but we're part of it. Everything we do, we are one with the environment. In Thailand, some of you know there's a big uprising going on. It's led by students, but it was also initiated by peasant farmers, and they've been fighting to save the land, to reclaim land from corporations who've absolutely decimated the land. And in Thailand, they say, we do as much for the soil as we do for our families. And I think that's a great way to go in the movement. That's how we have to think of it. Okay, so I just wanted to say about the care income and why it's so urgent.